figured to be in the police station for distance and whatnot.
So at the time, other than that, no other changes. Yeah, go ahead.
Just curious, is there a formal agenda for today, or additional topics can be brought up in roundtable?
Additional topics are, from my understanding, typically brought up at the roundtable.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the agenda that's posted is a formal agenda for tonight, but you can, as a elected member, bring something up through the roundtable.
Okay, and it doesn't need to be announced at the beginning?
No.
Right. So let's forge ahead here. We'll start with the rcmp costs, delegation. So, or sorry. Sergeant Dean Bridle and Sergeant Josh Allen. Correct, and then going to that rcmp cost. So, gentlemen, you have the floor, and go ahead when you're ready.
Sure.
Go ahead.
So I guess I'll just start. Sorry, I'm just going to stand up so you can see me here. But I'll just give a quick update with respect to our resources currently at the detachment. Right now we have 25 out of the 28 positions that are presently staffed. There's one new corporal position that's vacant, and there is a process underway right now to fill that corporal spot. So that's one of the supervisor positions, and that sits right now with our national promotions unit. And then there's one new constable position that we had created, and it's vacant right now, but we're seeking members to fill that spot. So our staffing and personnel unit is presently trying to fill that. We also have one of the GIS constable position is vacant, but that's going to be filled internally with Constable Pulatsky as of February 17th. So that's going to be good to have that spot filled. And then backfill for Ryan's spot will be a cadet at a Troop 38. So we'll have a cadet starting here after March 15th. So we'll have another new face in the community. There's also one member that's still off on parental leave until May of this year, and then hopefully they'll be back in the ranks. And there's the new corporal position that I talked about. That's one that we reclassified. It was a constable position, but there's kind of a long-term vision to have 4 watches here, and I'll kind of elaborate on the reason why I want to do that. There's presently 3 watches, and we have 24-hour policing on the weekends only. That's Friday and Saturday night, and the rest of the time it's those are 10-hour shifts, but they overlap. So the rest of the week they're only on till 4 and then being on call right till the next shift is in at 8. So by having one of the positions reclassified to a corporal, that would give us the ability to create 4 watches. Then with the 4 watches, we would be able to have true 24-hour policing 7 days a week, and that would be advantageous for us, obviously, because we're not getting members called out at 5 in the morning when they're still in bed. If there's a call at that time in the morning, they're on duty and on the road, can respond much quicker, right? So that's kind of the reason for wanting to do that. It's not something that's going to happen like next week, but this is a step in the right direction to get that to happen, right? So that's kind of hopefully sooner than later, though I'd like to see it rolled out as early as maybe even this summer, but I can't. It all depends on one more position arriving. So that's kind of that with respect to the resources. We do, as you know, have a 3-member GIS unit, and there's Corporal Smith in there and 2 constables, and we'll have Ryan obviously starting there on the 17th. So it's going to be good because they've been doing a lot of project-based investigations and judicial authorizations, executing search warrants for drug activity and stuff like that. We've had some pretty good success since Drew arrived in August, and except I forgot to mark down how many warrants they've executed. It's actually been pretty good. They just did another one a couple of weeks ago. This is all source information from people in the community that they've developed as confidential informants. And so when I talk about project-based investigations, that's kind of what I'm talking about. So they've been having some good success in getting drugs and guns off the streets, so that's really good to see. The GIS unit's been tasked with some more complex investigations, as well as developing the junior members in that line of work, dealing with warrants and stuff like that. So it's been really good since Drew's been here. He brought a lot of good experience with him. Overall calls for service from 2019 for the Laurent detachment was 12,991 calls. So that's fairly good. We're one of the busier detachments in the province. This for 2020, that was in 2019. 2020, 11,786. So a little bit less, but think that that's COVID related is the reason behind that. Can't say that beyond, without someone saying, well, how do you know that? I'm just guessing. So just a snapshot from January 2020 to this January. January 2020 was 885 calls in that month, and this year for 2021, 794. So a little bit less. Hopefully that's a positive trend that we're going to continue to see less calls, but we'll see. So one of the things that we do to sort of help offset the crime and stuff like that and residential break and enters is once we've identified somebody that's shown a propensity for doing those types of crimes and have been doing it, hence the word prolific, we put them on, or they are put on by court conditions from the courts or our members. And once they're on a curfew, then we like to maintain constant door knocks every night if we have to, and go and just ensure that they're abiding by those conditions. If they're not, then they get breached and will be held in custody, and then it's up to the courts to then again release them if that's so is their choice. But it's just one of our ways to hold those people accountable that's shown that that's what they're doing out in the community after hours and during the day as well. But, so that's one of the things that also is a part of our annual performance plan. So I'll just kind of quickly talk about the APP. So for our 2021 APP, our priorities were enhanced road safety, police community relations and visibility, and then, as I just mentioned, prolific offenders. Pardon me. So for our enhanced road safety, we wrote 610 tickets last year, 97 impaired driving charges, which I guess can be seen as good or bad. I guess that's still a lot of people that are making that decision to drive while under the influence. So there's always a need to improve there. PCRs are school visits, community meetings, check stops, parades, interacting with the students and stuff like that at school. And again, our offender management condition checks. So last year, in 2019, we conducted 2,961 door knocks or condition checks. And then in 2020 was just a little less, 2,134 condition checks. And again, those are simply just to hold people accountable that have proven that they're basically breaking the law and breaking into houses and stuff like that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell, just with respect to the APP. But so now, as we're coming into middle of February here, we start to plan for our APP for the coming year, and so that's where Josh and myself will reach out to you guys as the mayor and council and see what exactly are the priorities for Orange. What do you want to see as our priorities? One of the things I'll just throw out there is I've always been big on is some sort of a crime reduction element. Like, yes, road safety is it's important and it also generates revenue for the community as well. But I'd like to see something more crime reduction based sort of initiatives that tackle different things, like we have residential beanies, theft from vehicles or theft of vehicles or stuff like that. So that's kind of one of the directions I'll be pushing the APP for this coming year is more crime reduction based. So, but again, this isn't obviously the venue for having those discussions, but I will be coming around probably in the next couple of weeks to sort of start to pick your brain and see what it is that you as the elected leadership of this community would like to see included. So maybe put some thoughts towards that and we can take it up at a later date. So, does that sound fair?
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything specific today that you want? Like, is this a chance for us to ask you questions?
Sure. Sure, if you like, yeah.
Just because I know that there's a few people that really have some things that they want to ask.
Sure, absolutely.
I just want to make sure that we stay sort of on track with you guys.
Yeah,
after this.
no, we wouldn't want to take up a whole lot of time.
And then so in a couple of weeks you're going to come back and you're going to sort of.
So it's called our consultation phase for the APP.
Mm-hmm.
Joe will remember this from years gone by as well. You probably. So.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. So we're good for questions now?
Sure. Yeah.
Can I touch briefly on the enhanced position?
Yes, please.
The town positions, and then we can have a few questions. I just had a few things that I thought you might be interested in as far as the 3 municipal positions paid for by the town.
Yeah.
So we've made a quick change of members. They've the ones that were in it before had been committed, had finished a year, so then we switched and put some new members in there. So Constable Abu Ali is going in there. He's a new recruit that's come to us from Depot. Constable Lisa Horseman is off of maternity leave, and she's going in one of those positions, and she's one of our more senior officers at the detachment. And then Craig Murray is in there as well, and he's yet to finish a full year. I think he's got a few months left, and then once he's done his full year, we'll put somebody else in there. So there was about 279 calls in the town of La Ronge for the month of January. A quick breakdown, Constable Murray, I ran the stats for each officer. He had 85 calls that he took within the community of La Ronge. Constable McDonald had less at 44 calls, and then Constable Horseman responded to 72 calls within the town of La Ronge. We've had an additional 117 patrols to the community of La Ronge. 77 of those were night patrols and 44 were day patrols within the month of January. We've had a little bit less proactive work we can do in the schools and with the businesses, obviously, because of COVID stuff. So we've let the town employees take on attendance at the hub meetings. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, they do a virtual hub meeting. It's about a half an hour, 45 minutes of their commitment on Tuesday and Thursday morning. So that's something they've taken on to do a little bit more proactive work within the community of La Ronge, because they're not able to get out as much as they'd like to be in the schools. That's basically it for the town employees.
Excellent, thanks guys. So we'll there's some questions if anybody's had while these guys are here. Anybody have anything they can ask?
Good evening, Anna here. I don't know how to raise my hand on Skype, but I'm sure there's a button for that. So I just wanted to say thank you. I'm happy to hear that there's additional patrols at night, especially. I find that a lot of things happen at night that go unnoticed, but just knowing that there's more patrols, I'm really appreciative of that. So thank you for that.
Anyone else?
I wanted to pick up on one of the things said before. You mentioned that we're one of the more busy detachments in the province. And I'm wondering about how that compares with other detachments' staffing levels. If staffing here compares well with staffing in other detachments that have the same number of calls.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, actually. So when, I guess, our operational support branch in Regina, when they look to establish how many members each detachment needs, they used to take a thing called a STEER analysis, but now it's basically a police resource methodology that they do. And within that, they do take calls for service into account, and then with that on how many calls for the year per each member. And that's how they basically sort of arrive at what the needs of that detachment are. Now, the new police resource methodology, because the STEER analysis was skewed somewhat, because if you have somebody that's really, say with the prolific offender checks, they go out and they're charging 2,000 people a year, that would throw the numbers sort of off, right? Because it would show, they have all these other calls that they're dealing with. So that could generate maybe a whole another position being created. But so they took that into account when they came up with this new sort of methodology that they've used. And so, for example, like I always consider the big three detachments, that being La Loche, La Ronge, and Pelican Arrows, sort of for the northern detachments. They're all fairly busy, and I think La Ronge and La Loche are fairly similar resource-wise, but I think we may have, obviously they don't have the enhanced positions that we do here, so we're fortunate to have those spots, but I think that their structure is fairly similar to us. They have in rank and everything, they have a staff sergeant like we do, a sergeant, 3 corporal supervisors I think they have, and then they probably have about 20 to 23 constables, so it'd be very similar to here.
Okay, can I just quickly follow up on that as well? With the enhanced policing program in place, what has the impact been from a detachment perspective?
Well, I think the impact on that is that, you know, there's 3 employees that are solely responsible to the community of La Ronge. So even if things are busier on the reserve or busier in Air Ronge, they're here. So we get the benefit of the enhanced patrols, which Viviana had mentioned. We get in the summers, we get the walks, foot patrols, we get the school, a little more interaction in the school. And then just the extra visibility of those 3 officers within the community of La Ronge. There's always there's either one on day shift, one on night shift, and then one on a period of rest or on days off. So there's always one that's solely designated just to the town.
And those members only deal with La Ronge matters. That's it.
Unless, of course, there's an emergency where there's
Safety sensitive response, yeah. But they won't have carriage of an investigation.
Right.
Right, yeah.
Thank you.
Sure, go ahead.
You know, it's unfortunate this whole, this program that started a year ago was intercepted by the COVID virus. But, so you really, things are kind of skewed a little bit, so it's really, but can you show statistics that would show improvement as a result of having this program in place?
Of the prolific offender? Yeah, we, right at this particular moment, it might be tough, but I can certainly do that tomorrow and send something. Because there is proven benefits. I've been here since August, but you think that should provide enough snapshot to sort of get an idea or an understanding if it's effective or not. But you need a little bit of time just to be able to get a good snapshot of where things are at. And we're making some changes recently too to the prolific offender program, because before, the way it was managed by sort of the GIS unit, and so what they would do is they would have a list of people that would be on the list, and so the members would go out and they'd knock on doors. If they were maybe in violation of their conditions, there would be a form would be filled out. It would be sent to the person that looks after the program, and then at the end of the month, they would sort of lay one global charge. And I don't know if that was effective or not, but that seemed to be what the courts liked. But I know in my former life, when I was in charge of Broadview, we had a very, very robust prolific offender program there. And every night we were out and knocking doors. And if you weren't there, it wasn't just put their name to the end of the month, they were charged that night. So we laid an awful lot of charges. And over the course of 2 years, we dropped property crime by 33%. So I think that's a pretty big reduction. And persons crime, we dropped 12%. So your assaults and stuff like that.
Are you aware of any other communities that are paying for enhanced positions?
Off the top of my head, I'm not entirely sure.
I think this is the only one that I know of right now.
From our position as new council, we have to, we're
You have to justify the cost,
we have
absolutely.
to, make sure that they're getting their money's worth.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a lot of money, total contract is
Yes.
$617,000
Yeah.
based on last year's numbers, so, we have to look at the equity.
No, absolutely.
Are we getting what we should service out of this?
Yep.
I'm sure it will be discussed with council.
No, absolutely. It's,
One of the questions I have is in your comments, you discussed a crime reduction based model of what you'll be doing as a strategic direction going forward. What's your methodology of creating that, and how much community involvement is in that?
well, the community involvement portion would be possibly starting right here at the elected leaders, finding out what exactly the needs are and concerns that might be brought forward from the ratepayers and stuff like that. And so then through different forums like town halls, we've had them in the past. I know they weren't really that well attended, but through town halls we can seek sort of input from community members and see what they would like to see, if that means greater patrols in a certain area or stuff like that. But again, everything for me, crime reduction based, always ties back into holding people accountable. So we're going to be as visible as we possibly can, but is, in my experience and in other places in larger centers, just that accountability piece is key. And if you can have all of the members buy into that and just stay at it night by night, you'll see the rewards. So, but there's different things we can do too. Like we have theft from vehicles and that, just kids out walking around checking doors, right? Constantly. If you happen to forget and your door gets left, while your change, your sunglasses, whatever, phone, it's going to be gone, right? So we have different things that we tried to get sort of going in the fall, and then it was just, it's just tough to try and make ends meet or make everybody sort of connect with COVID. People in headquarters aren't necessarily working at headquarters, they're working from remote locations and stuff like that. So it's a little bit difficult, but we have some different tools that are available to us to, we'll just call it what it is, I guess, just like bait vehicles and stuff like that. And so it's just a matter of getting them put in place in strategic locations where maybe there was some activity. And we had success with it before when it was brought into the community. And so we tried to bring it up here this fall, and then it was just too hard to get the folks down south to. The one guy that's responsible, I mean, he looks after the whole province, so I'm not trying to point any fingers at him, and he's got a busy job as well. But so once things kind of get going here in the spring, we look to do stuff like that, and then it's kind of an unassuming vehicle. You wouldn't expect that it's there for that purpose, but and then we just have ways of tracking it when somebody tampers with it. So those are just a couple of the things, but like I said, if you guys have any ideas or whatever you would like to see implemented, by all means, that's what this process is all about.
And I guess that's kind of why I was asking a little bit about the methodology on it, because just from a general sense, you know, you spoke about the accountability piece, and that's typically, once again, the end result of a system that puts somebody into a position where crime is an option for them for income or crimes of opportunity or whatnot. And for me, is there any models within the rcmp across Canada where they've been involved in the upstream effects of crime and being involved in the, I guess, social aspects of it?
Mm-hmm.
Or
yeah, so I think I understand what you're saying. And so if, like, we always have that ability to exercise discretion, right? And if somebody is committing crime just for the sake of trying to survive, then absolutely, we have the means and the ability to use discretion. And then we have the hub program, and we can make a referral there. And if there's assistance that they need from the various agencies, then by all means, they'll get that assistance.
And I guess the main reason I asked that is it ties back into what you were saying about like the prolific offenders and doing curfew checks and whatnot. Like a lot of these people, because of the systems that they've been surrounded by drugs and alcohol and addiction and you know, poor housing conditions. And I guess that's part of my worry, is that if someone's trying to escape the addiction and do something better with their lives, and that addiction is coming back into their
And we come
households.
across situations like that.
And that's where I was wondering if there's that discretion used to try and find that stopgap measure rather than, and when I hear accountability, I always worry that automatically means that here's the letter of the law, regardless of what has happened, you're charged.
We've had one just not too terribly long ago, and it was exactly that. It was kind of a tough situation for that individual. There was violence going on in the house. He buggered off, and then ended up somebody called and said, hey, he's not supposed to be out. And so as soon as we heard the circumstances, we didn't lay a charge or anything like that. It's much like people that find themselves on alcohol conditions. I'll use discretion and not lay a charge. I'm not really big on exploiting somebody's illness.
Right.
So if they're dependent on alcohol, then I just don't think it's appropriate to be charging them for that. So.
Okay, no, like I said, I just wanted to kind of see what the methodology on that, and if there was some kind of upstream ways of looking at a crime reduction strategy. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's law enforcement, so your job is to enforce the laws of which are already there, and I get that you can't do a whole bunch on the prevention side, but that's probably out of your jurisdiction. But I didn't know if there was something that you've seen in other areas that might be applicable to our area.
Well, we do the same thing here. Like I said, there's always our ability to use discretion, right?
Hugh and Ryan, do you guys have anything you guys want to ask before we?
Well, I guess what I'd like to express, and I know there's probably not a lot law enforcement can do on it, it's just, how will I say this? The general view that feedback I'm getting from the public is, you guys are doing your job. You're apprehending these criminals. But it's unfortunate, the numbers are coming forth slowly, that our courthouse down here is not as strict and holding them to the accountable, to the rules and regulations that are laid out for them. Or, I'll be frank about it, they're a lot more lenient in the north than it seems in the south. And I guess, I think what we'd be probably looking at attempting to do is, we gotta curb this crime, this vandalism. We gotta work more collaboratively with the public, with the so-called hubs of the world, with the judicial system, with the law enforcement people. We're to be an educated society. There's gotta be a way of dealing with this and eradicate this perpetual crime, continual, same individuals, time and time again. So I guess, maybe it is through HUB, or would you guys be willing to come to a table of sorts to?
Absolutely, yeah. We just had this discussion, Josh and I, not too long ago with his worship about that very topic. And I guess the frustration that our members have when they'll deal with somebody who has been in other people's houses when they shouldn't be, numerous occasions. So it takes that member off the street for an entire shift while they're preparing that matter for court. And then they go and they're back in the street as quick as you can say, wow. So, and I realize COVID has impacted things as well, right? So, you know, and I certainly don't want to be critical of the court system and stuff like that. Like, I realize they have a tough job, but yeah, it does weigh on our members, and it can be frustrating. So.
Well, thanks.
Brian, do you have anything you want to ask?
Actually, I'm good. I do appreciate the work they do. I did take some time during the beginning of COVID last year. I talked to actually Sergeant Josh Hallett first and let him know that I'd be out, you know, just driving around town, making sure things are good, right? And their job definitely isn't easy, you know. Like, I found a guy passed out in the snow the one night, and then I found another girl walking through, you know, this ditch with water in it, freezing to death and looking spaced out. So I can only imagine how much work it takes to assure that everybody in this community is safe and taken care of. And thank you.
Great. Well, I
This is
think.
Viviana Bernardo.
Oh, sorry, Viviana, missed that. You're
Yeah.
still in a bubble. Go ahead.
Okay, so, Josh and, Brody, Brody is it right? Or is it Brody?
No, that's the other bridal.
Brody's his son.
Staff Sergeant Bridal and Josh, there you go. That's
There you go.
I do have a question on the enhanced policing piece. So in the past, there have been school programs such as the DARE, then the Aboriginal Shield, but in more recent years, those programs have not been around at the school level as an upstream prevention mechanism. Are there any plans to reinitiate programs of that type?
Well, yeah, DARE has gone by the wayside, really. We're not using it as an organization anymore. But, you know, the Aboriginal Shield, a lot of it, we've been involved in sort of helping out. Some of the teachers have been trained to implement it, and we've been involved in helping out, but we're more than willing to get involved with that. Any chance we can get to get into school, we're looking for opportunities. It's just been a little bit on the back burner with COVID stuff, but yeah, a lot of members, for example, even in Churchill, the last few weeks we had members in there helping set up the gym, and we had equipment that we weren't using at the detachment anymore, and it was donated to the gym, and some of the members were over there setting up equipment and wanting to get involved that way too. So, but yeah, Aboriginal Shield we're happy to help with that, but it needs to sort of be spearheaded by the school, and then we get involved to help out teaching the classes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think that's going to sort of wrap up the time. We're kind of going a little bit over, but I know that there's some pressing questions.
Sure.
So thank you guys so much. I know we had our conversation, and I know there's talk about different ways that we can support, especially with different lobbying efforts and things like that. So I do appreciate you guys coming today.
Well, thank you very much for
Thanks,
having us. We'll be in touch in the next session.
Perfect.
All the years I've spent here, this is the first time I've had two high-ranking people.
Yeah.
High ranking, eh?
All right, have a good day.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Yeah. Okay, so we move on to 2.2, which is Embracing Life, Brandy Bell. So are we, because she's not here, are we?
The report is on the agenda further on.
Okay.
So she said she was available for
Okay.
questions at that point.
So just, why is it on the delegation?
On this one,
Sorry, say that again?
I'd like to declare conflict of interest. I'm on the executive committee for Embracing Life in my work, so.
Okay, so
It's not coming up until later, Viviana.
yeah, sorry, it's
Oh, okay.
because she's not here, sorry, I wasn't sure, so we'll do it later on. Okay, so we move on to reports from administration. we'll go straight to the uniflex feasibility, and I apologize, you were on the right track, I was just a little bit behind there, so please go ahead, Tony.
Just gonna get set up here.
Sure.
So you guys all had a chance to read everything, correct?
We're
Okay.
it is hot in here.
It is really hot. Okay, so the background on this that we're looking at the Uniflex facility assessment / feasibility study for a new multi-use facility. The backgrounder on it is it was in the discussion and in the budget for 2020 as part of the MEEP grant. We allotted $50,000 towards it. The main focus is to be on a facility replacement plan that includes costs and conceptual designs for the construction of a new multi-use recreation facility in the future. So the analysis is we received 17 proposals. It was due December 31st, and we received 17 proposals. So it's been a lot to go through. All the proposals were reviewed and the information was put into a bid evaluation calculator. Once this process was completed, we were able to narrow down a few companies and continued on with reference checks. Our main goal was to come out with a company that was within our budget, had experience with facility assessments and feasibility studies, along with a lot of experience with the community engagement. So you can see in your on page 3 of your issue report that bidder number 11 came out as the winner, and that company is called RC Strategies. They have extensive experience in the recreation sector with facility assessments and feasibility studies. Community engagement, they have a lot of experience with that, and they did score 81.84 in the bid evaluation calculator. The financial impacts is directly the information taken directly from their proposal, which was attached to your issue report as well. So today our recommendation is that council approve the proposal as submitted by RC Strategies. Proposal of service for the Uniflex facility assessment feasibility study for a new multi-use facility at a total upset cost not to exceed $39,560, and that includes all the consulting fees, disbursement, and applicable taxes. Questions?
Just really quick here. Am I in conflict of interest with feasibility? Just
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
No, you're a user of the current building, you're not involved in any of the proposals.
no, but I also work for the JRMCC too. So
Yeah.
I just want to make
I
sure.
don't think, I don't think you're in conflict. no.
Okay, all right. Does anybody have any questions?
Just a comment, I was pretty impressed with the whole process and looking at some of the work that they've done in this place. That's good, that's what we found. A company that will do a good job and really follow through.
What's the timeline roughly for it?
4 months.
I'm sure that it's so May, and that's
I
going to be.
think it's on page 11. It shows like the second week of May.
Oh, okay.
Except
Final report.
the only thing is that that was starting with the beginning of February, so it'll be
Right.
the end of June.
Okay.
Right.
And they don't see any delays or anything with say COVID?
No, they don't think so. They actually, they did comment about how they've really gone virtual now, so that will actually bring down costs, or it has brought down costs, like, so they don't have to travel as much, so.
And have they come up
No.
to?
Nobody has yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Abby.
Yes. One, the process looks amazingly streamlined. I'm proud of what you guys put forward because that makes it a really easy decision without clouding it with bidder names except for the winner. It's a great proposal that they put forward. They do mention in there that there is synergy if they were to do the parks and trails master plan as well. So I'm wondering what the timeline on that RFP is, how that might be integrated in this, because there is potential to save some money.
It's under evaluation right now. We have 60 days from date of closing for that particular RFP, and we're treating them as two separate projects, and it is what it is. I mean, in terms of the duty of fairness to the RFP process, they'll be evaluated in a similar manner. We disclosed the evaluation criteria to all the proponents that were there, so likely be in a position, I think we're hoping in the next, possibly by next council meeting, I think, to bring a recommendation forward on that. I think, Tony, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, they're even though it, I mean, if that is the end result, it'll be by coincidence more than any other matter.
I just wanted to check on that, if there was any weighting that might be involved.
No.
Yeah, because if you have a public process, you know, you're inviting people, you can't sabotage the, you know, just say, well, we'll give it to you because you got the other one, you know, it's I think everybody that bids on it wants to be given a fair chance, and rightfully so.
There's been several companies actually give proposals on both. So, and then there's also a lot of companies that have just done the single, either or. For the parks one, we did receive 10 proposals, so.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to disclose and get into that though.
No.
You're right, council.
Yeah, that's right.
With the community engagement sort of factor in the whole process, does that include also the other tri-communities in this too, or is it solely just town of La Ronge, and will there be contact with that? Because the one thing that I'm really worried about and concerned about is that we have some crossover, and sometimes I just don't think there's enough synergy between the three communities, if that's what makes sense. Is there any consideration for that?
We'll be focusing on the groups the user groups that use the facilities, such as like the La Ronge Minor Hockey, the La Ronge Skating Club, the Ice Wolves, and a lot of those are tri-community members. So,
Okay.
so there's going to be a lot of engagement with the users of the facility itself, which will include.
But having said that, though, I think that part of the process certainly could include engagement with the other two jurisdictions, if nothing else, to determine, I guess, their feelings on several matters. If the company is engaged and they hear it, I don't think it would be inappropriate to ask them to engage in that type of a meeting. It's something we can follow up on and ask.
Yeah, I think it would be a great opportunity, just because when we look at, say, Air Ronge, right, which does not have a recreation facility, right, and if we're gonna further down the line either ask them for money or we move to like a user-based sort of fee if you're not within the town, and vice versa for, you know, on reserve and stuff, it might be an opportunity there, just so that we're not crossing over, if possible. I don't know if that falls within the realm of this feasibility study, but just sort of my thoughts, thinking of that.
I think, Colin, you have a great opportunity to be an important stakeholder and represent the town, knowing what you know, being involved where you are.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I do want to be careful too, right? Because I just want to make sure that I don't cross any lines. So I just have to be careful, I think, in that sense. Because like my motives are obviously, you know, for a positive reason, but I think they can be misconstrued if I'm not careful when I have to sort of cause conflict, right?
Yeah.
We can talk to if this is council's desire to recommend awarding this tonight, we can talk to them about that and determine whether that's part of the fee or whether it influences anything or not, and advise council next meeting.
Okay. Any other questions for Tony?
Tony, it's Viviana, security, and maybe I missed it, you may have mentioned it. And the evaluation criteria, it says 5% past experience with town of Oronto. I'm just curious to know what that would be on page 4. Sorry, page 3.
In the proposal itself?
Pie graph that you
Oh.
have there?
Yes.
On the pie graph, that was the evaluation criteria that each of the companies was on. So if you go to the matrix above it,
Yeah, okay.
yeah,
I can see that.
yeah, whatever they were awarded would have been, in one of the columns of the rows. This would just be the percentage of criteria out of 100% based on bids that we received, and
Okay.
yeah.
All right, thanks for clarifying that. And you know what, like Abby, I love how this is laid out as like prepared, and the name's not clouding the results. So, awesome, thank you.
Great, okay, thank you, Tony, really appreciate it.
I will put the recommendation forward that we approve this.
Okay,
I'll second that.
do we have to do?
No, we don't need any second. It'll just go forward, yeah, through committee, it'll go straight through
Yes,
to.
Have it.
looks good.
Okay, we can move on to 3.1.2 then, which is, it's gonna be Tony again. So it's consider the town of Orange municipal grants to the community groups policy.
This is in response to a request this council had regarding dealing with individual requests that you were being inundated with, and the end result of this was a policy that was developed and researched certainly by Tony, was the lead on this, and really determined that there's 2 intakes and there's some specific criteria that's identified within it. And I think what we'd like feedback from council on, because you've had this and read it, are there any particular comments in terms of the policy or the procedures or the criteria? And it's something that, is this the direction that you wanted to see this move, or are we off the mark or not?
No, I think it's going to be on here. I think this looks great. I guess one thing we do need to discuss, and again, it may be on here, is the deadline. We need to really look at in the yearly intake, or more than once a year. That's what
There'll be 2 intakes, and the intent is that it'll depend when it's marketed. So if it's, as an example, marketed in October, November of the year prior, you'll hit the first intake, and then the second intake will still be within that fiscal year. So after the program is established, in our view, for 1 year, and council determines the pool of money that you want to allocate into this type of program on an annual basis, you're going to need a year of history to determine the demand side of this thing a little bit. And so the first year, I think we'll be learning a little bit, and the community getting used to educating the community and the organizations that you need to apply in advance if you do want any third-party funding from the town at all. And so, the rollout of this is just as important as the policy itself for us. So, and hitting the deadline. So, it's something that we, administration, would work on. I think if you approve the policy, then the communication piece would go along with this, and that would be kind of the second phase to this.
Go ahead, Ryan.
I just wanted to say I read through it, and I do appreciate how you guys put in there as well that the town will always recommend people look for other sources first, whether it's through fundraising grants as well. I do appreciate you have 2, like, kind of one in the spring and one in the fall set up for people to put in applications. And I also appreciate it's for nonprofit as well. So yeah, just great job on that, and I would like to see this go forward tonight.
Abby, go ahead.
I had 2 questions that came out of this, which may or may not be resolved through policy discussion necessarily, but what I'm left with asking after reviewing the policy is, how will council set the budget for this?
And if a worthy project comes forward above the budget, how will we justify the increase? And also, will the budget be advertised? Will there be a set amount of money that people can apply for?
Well, our intention as part of your 2021 budget is to use a little bit of history. So it's not going to be science in terms of the first year on the rollout. So you will have an opportunity to, when you see your 2021 operating budget, to determine exactly how much money you want to put into that. So we'll do our best to try and gauge some history to put that number in play. If it's over and under, like part of this, I think, is to provide some cost surety to council on an annual basis that we only have so much money to distribute to within the community in a fiscal year, and those that get them in then from council's point of view, as this policy, I think, becomes more mature and possibly sophisticated, then you can make determinations later in your term to determine if you need to roll more cash into this thing or not. So you're always going to have that discretion as a council. And to the third part of your question, council always has the discretion to do whatever they choose to do. If there is something that, this isn't intended necessarily to be limiting, but if something comes forward to you that wows you as an elected council, you've got the right to approve it for face value. And at that point in time, check with your administration to see, where we're at fiscally and on. So it's kind of a loaded question, but I think it can be dealt with at that point of contact.
So is this some of the money that, like there's a program in place right now where the funds different organizations, but it's kind of through lotteries or whatever? Is this just our own money, or is that tap into, does that kind of put the two programs together?
It is set up as two separate programs. The majority of the money that we use for the community grant lotteries dollars,
So
it goes to the arena.
So if somebody who qualifies for one, they can apply to the town and get additional money for their program possibly?
I think it would tie both of those together. So this is kind of a completely separate thing.
Yeah, we tend to use the other grant for ourselves, on that too, and use it to offset cost of programming, I believe.
Public skating, shading, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Is there going to be an evaluation, say they apply the next year, do they have to sort of qualify based on, okay, what did you do at the last,
Yeah, it's an annual, it'd be an annual, it's not an automatic thing, you have to apply and provide the information as requested.
Yeah, there is an application form and a follow-up form.
But if they received it the year before, do they have to sort of kind of qualify, just show, okay, this is how we utilize the money it went to, to what it was supposed to, what it was applied for? Is there any kind of an evaluation on the program?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
If somebody applies, like a group,
Yeah.
and if they don't complete their follow-up properly, then that would definitely affect their chances of getting it again.
Okay, that's
That type of thing, yeah.
Is that part of the reason why you have the 75% up front and 25% holdback kind of idea?
Yeah.
Okay. I have no other questions, and I'm willing to make the recommendation for approval on this at the council.
Abby, did you have another question? No, okay, sorry, it says your hand up. Okay, good, if there's another questions, we'll move on. Moving on to the embracing life, thank you so much for that.
That's all right.
Appreciate it, you've done a lot. Okay, so
It's here for this one too.
Oh,
perfect. All right, embracing life.
I believe Councillor Riz said that she was in conflict. Did you want us to call you back, Viviana?
She's muted.
Too late, she's gone.
Yeah, on her way.
Yeah, she's gone.
Okay.
She's not on there.
Okay.
Yeah, the minutes can reflect that.
All right, so moving on to the embracing life issue report. Go ahead.
Okay, so Brandy Bell was going to be here for the delegation. She was going to speak about the program itself. You do have the issue report in front of you. Is there
Yeah,
any?
they got it, just get into it.
Yeah.
They got it.
Okay, so basically they are looking for assistance from the town to take this money so then we can redistribute it to them. So it's going to be a very quick 3 checks in and out?
It's primarily flow-through, and that New North used to do it, and they've asked the town because we're part of we meet the requirements for them. So we checked it out whether in fact we could do it, and through our chief financial officer and our director of finance. And we've sorted that piece out, so we can do this, and all we're doing is flowing money through, and we're getting recommendations directly from the organization. So we think it's a good initiative. We're just taking the place of another entity that's in there. So
Have we done this in the past?
no, we haven't done this. New North had done it earlier. We kind of identified that in the issue report.
Yeah,
all we're doing is taking their place because they're not part of, I believe, the donor list to accept the cash, and we are. So we're just flowing the money through and distributing checks based on their recommendations.
Right, no, I understand and I appreciate that. I'm wondering, have we done anything like this in the past, not specifically this?
Oh, okay.
On
Not to my
a
knowledge.
point of order, I just read the issue report here. I did see New North, and I am on the board there, so I'm going to defend.
Thanks.
Sorry.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I misunderstood your question, Mayor Tuchniak. No, I'm not aware of it, but again, this isn't a dangerous precedent by any means. I think we're assisting a good organization and a worthy cause by flowing this money through, and the time it takes for us to do it is minuscule versus the impact that it has.
Okay, go ahead,
I
Brian.
would recommend we follow through on this.
Sorry, Brian, I just got a quick question. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I like the idea as well in supporting this organization. It is just basically making sure, we're the mom and dad here. We're taking the money in and then making sure somebody else is getting it. That's it. So it's really a little bit of an administration cost, but for that to help out our community, absolutely.
Go ahead, Abby.
I just wanted to say that I actually, a few years ago, worked for government relations as a policy analyst for this program, and I'm really happy to see that it continues and that they're getting a big plug of money. Being an accountable partner, Kikanak also provides that service for a lot of community groups. It does nothing except the administration of 3 checks, like Tony said, so I'm very much in support of this and really happy to see that this is happening.
Okay, great. And Joe, you recommended a...
Yeah.
Good. All right, I think that's it. Tony,
All right.
thank you.
Thanks, Tony.
Faithful today.
Yeah.
Okay, and Robbie?
Sure.
The old taxi, the old taxi guy.
Yeah, you should be there. That's fine. That's okay.
Oh, I was sworn at a few times I could hear you over the years. I was wondering if you did me that.
I like her name, something else on there.
What's going on?
Good, yourself?
Not bad.
Good to hear. There you go. You guys will start off. I guess, like,
Oh, sorry, it's we're just waiting on Viviana.
oh,
Sorry.
there's all
Do
the
you see her, Alice?
Sorry?
Do you see her?
No, I can't seem to add her for some reason. I don't see her.
I can try.
Or, okay, I was gonna say message her.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to message her. Really?
There we go.
There we go.
I was able to call her for some reason.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, great. All right, Viviana, you can hear us? You're good?
I can hear you, yes, I can.
Okay, perfect. All right, go ahead, Robbie.
Okay, I guess I don't know if you have a lot of chance to read over the report there, but a concern was raised by council regarding the operations of taxi companies in the town around. You guys wanted to look at taxi being available 24 hours a day. So I looked into that compared to other communities. In bigger cities, I guess there is a way to require that by bylaw as a condition of the licensing, that they have to have dispatching hours during certain regulations. So if that is something that council want to look at, that's an option. It'd be a bylaw amendment. But I did reach out to 3 taxi companies at this time. Some of the feedback I've had wasn't the most positive in regards to those things, but that is definitely something that council's realm to regulate if you are looking at regulating the operating hours. You guys have any questions?
Were we in a position of giving them the opportunity to come and speak to us, or are you just relying on what you have to say, or they have to say?
Yes, I contacted all of them. I advised them that it was going to be discussed at council today in open forum. They're more than welcome to come join. I said that council is looking at regulating the operating hours for 24 hours a day.
I can jump in here too. It's not, we didn't limit them because I think at this point we're exploring the concept with council, and if it's something that you want, if you're interested, I think that the companies have somewhat made it clear in the discussions with our bylaw officer that there are issues related to the 24-hour period from a staffing point of view. So there are some issues, but all we're trying to point out is that you can do it if you like. If you want more consultation with them, you can do that. You also note in the issue report that some communities have chosen not to regulate taxis, period, and go to more of a free market system. So that's an option for council. And because you're in committee of the whole, you can discuss this openly and determine what course of action you take. We're not fixated on anything at this point.
If my comment was a little snide, it wasn't aimed to be snide, it was just a question. And if I continue to get ridiculed on my line of questioning here, like, what's going on? If somebody got something to say to me, you just say it. Don't send me these little texts, you know? So, just want to clear the air here a little bit.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in really quick. I mean, guys, a lot of this stuff has to be directed to me, right? So if there are issues with how we're talking or how they're delivered, let's just make sure that we keep it to the chair here and the back and forthness is with that. And I'll do my best to continue. I'm still learning here, as you guys know. But yes, I think that we just do have to. There is a little connection to that.
I can appreciate
Just
that.
a point of order.
Go ahead.
There used to be a rule around the table that all cell phones are turned off. There should be no communication back and forth during the council meeting. Those devices are supposed to be turned off unless something's changed.
Well, it's also because it's coming across on Skype, so
Okay,
that's the thing.
anyway, that's my point.
No, I appreciate that.
Can I respond to?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've got a long history with cabs. I was responsible for originally deregulating them because there was always a lot of bickering going on between cab companies, and so, to resolve it, and what happened was the trucking industry, there used to be Kalinowski Trucking that had the running rights up to L'Orange, and the trucking industry deregulated, so it opened it up to everyone. And that's the way the market should be. And so when you look at your proposed changes, we don't need a number.
So which
council would like to regulate plates and then get 20 down there. It basically regulates itself. Right now, there's no numbers.
For sure.
One company's got, 12 or whatever number they have. The other one's got 2, the other one's got whatever.
Oh, the total number of taxes. Yeah, no, for sure.
And so, but the important thing that the town needs to do is to ensure that the plates are on the same vehicles that have the safeties done on them. There should be periodical checks on that, because if an accident happens, we become listed in the liability. That's the only concern that I have. Other than that, in terms of hours, it'd be nice to have 24/7, but if they don't have the capacity, if we could request at least till 3 in the morning to get that crowd. There's always other cab companies that start early in the morning so they only got about 3 to 4 hours at the most that you don't have service.
Yeah, no, I've heard family taxi said they're open as late as bar hours. The one taxi company only opens till 6 because the owner operator doesn't work past 6. And the blues taxis, well, I think one comment was like, yeah, they don't get much business after 9 anyways, but. And they said, yeah, operating late at night, the concerns are like being brutally abused, people just leaving, damaging vehicles, security and stuff. And especially now during COVID, driver availability is very limited. They're having a hard time finding drivers. So I mean, there's 2 ways, yeah. And I heard the other topic about the regulation, number of taxis. Yeah, a lot of communities didn't. And I know the one company, I think Family Taxi, she was going to talk about later on. She's previously brought it forward. I mean, it's up to council if they want, but it puts a value to the company, right? So you have so many licenses. And
Do we do any check?
You got raised hands, Mayor, to, from your council.
Yeah. Ryan, let's go ahead.
I'd just like to say I am in agreement of like the taxi bylaw and limiting the number of plates handed out. I am not in agreement with telling them to run 24/7, right? I don't feel that telling people their hours of operation is our business.
Go ahead, Abby.
Actually, that was
Sorry, Abby, you're just cutting out there.
You're breaking up, Abby.
Is this better?
better.
Yeah.
That's better, yeah.
Okay. So is it fair to regulate a private business beyond what is in their capacity or profitable? And also, if the town wants to ensure public transport is available 24 hours, then as a municipality, that is our responsibility to do so, not to regulate a private business to do so.
Right, okay, Viviana?
So I guess this piece came around because of CAMP, right? So if, as a municipality, we support CAMP and the initiative that they are spearheading to reduce alcohol consumption, they are the ones that brought forward this whole idea around looking at taxi regulation. So if we support that group, we need to do that in a proactive way, and that would mean regulating taxis to an extent and ensuring that taxi service is provided at least half an hour after any liquor establishments close, because I think that's the intent here. In terms of allowing a free-for-all in terms of taxi business, I don't know if that's a great approach, just because we would run into safety pieces, we would run into just regular Joes off the street starting up their own taxi company, and I think that would just be problematic. And I do think we need taxi licensing and regulation and some parameters around hours of operation. Thank you.
Okay.
So, just, I guess, would this taxi bylaw also be something where ride-sharing programs can be regulated through? Like, I do know that we see in some of the community chats, whether it be through social media, that there's also a lot of, I guess, reduced fee rides to and around town. You know, when we're looking at providing a level of safety to the user of transportation within our municipality, you know, taxis typically have to go above and beyond on getting their vehicles regulated to a certain safety level, that when they pull up to an establishment, they have the taxi plate from the town of Orange letting them know that they are in compliance with our local bylaws and safety measures. And to me, this is partly, it's taking it in a bit of a different direction than the 24/7 reason why we've been looking at the bylaw, but I wanted to, while we're discussing this bylaw, if there is any level of consideration being put forward, like I said, to like the Ubers, the Lyfts, or just an unregulated market right now of people being able to do that, and what would the enforcement measures be?
I don't know, don't know how to answer that. I don't know anything about right share bylaws, this is on my route. Those things you're talking about.
I can jump in here. I can jump in here a little bit, is that I think that at this point, like the initial issue that came, that was brought to our attention was strictly hours, and we did not even examine some of the questions in regard to Uber and those other matters, which are certainly options if that's what council chooses to do. I think the purpose of tonight is that there was a question brought before you. If there's other elements of this bylaw that you want your administration to review or research or expand on, fair enough, we can do that. If you'd like to leave it as is, you certainly have the right to do that as well. And I think tonight we're looking for a little direction from council on how you want to proceed with the matter in general.
I think, I think if you tried to incorporate, some other use or of transportation, you'd really get pushback from the taxi company because they've got to get their vehicles certified and all of this, and and every taxi pretty much across the province is going to be metered, and there's fairly strict rules on it, and so it'd be very difficult to try and incorporate something else in that structure.
And that's kind of where I'm going with that, Joe, is if we don't have a bylaw municipally that addresses ride-sharing programs, then it goes to the unregulated market, because they can only, if it isn't written in law, then it is allowed, right? So if a ride-share program does not follow the same as a taxi cab company, then they've allowed their different definition. And that's why, for me, when we've talked about the taxi bylaw, I think we need to have that conversation of what we are going to allow as a regulated form of safe transportation in our community. And we can regulate that, from my understanding, through a taxi bylaw where ride-sharing programs are permitted in the town of Orange as long as they meet the same qualifications and classes.
So it's a licensing of the vehicle too through SGI. I think they have to have a special license. I think I'm not too familiar with it, but
yeah.
I mean, a lot of the ride shares, like you see on Facebook, those are just friends of a friend saying, hey, give me $5 to give me a ride, I don't know how we would.
It's hard to enforce, and I get that part.
Ryan, did you have further questions?
I'd just like to say, we're talking about, making sure people are getting home safe, and I think our responsibility is to educate people and tell them, make sure you have a safe ride home tonight, and that's about as far as we need to go. With that, there is already ride sharing happening in our community. It's called Facebook. People say, hey, I got $5, can I get a ride? Or somebody will say, I'm going to be out driving tonight. So this is all stuff that's already happening, right?
Viviana, you still have your hand up there?
Oh, I meant to lower it, but since you asked, the issue at hand is the hours piece. Do we regulate with the standard hours of operation or not? I believe is the issue at hand. It sounds like we may need to go to the voters and find possibly.
Well, I think, again, just if you do review the information that Robbie has provided, there doesn't seem to be an appetite from the companies at hand to do that. And Robbie, is that the feeling you got from them?
Yeah, definitely. We heard some other comments too, hold back, but yeah, definitely during COVID, they're having a lot of issues finding drivers. I mean, even for regular, you have to be open until midnight. Well, one of the company license can't operate that late. So we lose a taxi license basically.
Right.
So we're limited to our options. So I mean.
Happy, go ahead.
Can you guys see the comments? I'm assuming you can.
I can,
Yeah.
but it's very, very brief, so.
It's about 3 seconds that's up on the screen.
Yeah, and I saw your recommendation, I just didn't get the last part of it because it disappeared before I was able to read the whole thing.
It says, I would recommend to leave the bylaw as is. If we want a discussion about other rideshare and transit options, we could direct administration to provide that info.
Yeah, I mean.
Not interested in that.
So, I mean, I think what we can do is we can, what you guys have presented is I think sufficient for what we had asked for. I think if we can bring the other things that we asked about ride sharing stuff to there, and then we can And then we can put a resolution on the table whether we keep things or not, right? Is that sort of, or do we have to recommend one or the other?
Well, I think we'd like some direction on what do you want to do here, because I'm hearing mixed views of council in terms of direction here.
On the regulation of a 24/7, my personal views is that I don't think we should tell the private industry what hours they need to run. I think that, you know, when people are looking at transportation services, we need to make sure it's affordable, and I think that if they are forced to work into a 24/7 market, it would drive prices up, and I don't think that that's fair to the user groups or the business owners themselves. So I would be against the 24/7. However, I would like to have some recommendations brought forward on ride sharing and how to regulate that properly in our municipality and be proactive. I know that Uber and Lyft, I don't think currently works in our market, but I would like to see that brought forward for future discussions on ways that we can implement a policy surrounding ride sharing programs.
So the 24/7 question, Councilor McPhail's indicated no interest. Maybe let's start there, because that's the fundamental issue. Mayor Wojciechowski, I can just get a feeling from your council on that matter.
Yeah, I mean, so we'll just go around the table. I mean, Q, what is your?
I would not support that. I mean, anybody drive around town at 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, there's nothing going on. So why would you tell a company he's got to work at 5 o'clock in the morning? So
Right.
no, I would not support that.
Ryan?
I would not support 24/7 as well.
Abby?
I'm not in support of changing the bylaw.
Viviana?
I would not support 24/7, but I would support at least half an hour after the bar closes. So that's where the issue is.
Okay. Do you guys have any, are you guys in support of the regulating that, or we're doing all or nothing?
Well, again, we didn't, in fairness to the taxi companies, we didn't lay that as an option in front of them. So if that's the appetite of council, I think we would need to consult them a little bit here if that's the will of council, or leave it as it is. There's no further action on that matter for administration, in my view.
Abby?
Councillor Watt-McPhail, correct me if I'm wrong, but this specific issue was hashed out with some of the camp initiatives that the last council dealt with.
Do you want me to comment on that, you, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, what I can say is that the Northern Alcohol Strategy and the Community Alcohol Management Plan brought policy options to the town of La Ronge for review, and there was a discussion had on what would be involved in the regulation of cannabis and alcohol sales in the town of La Ronge bylaw that was ultimately passed. You know, as I'm sure you're aware, as each individual thing that policy option, it would trigger different parts of municipal bylaws. This one was not one that was brought forward as a policy option, I think for most of the same reasons we're discussing here tonight. And for myself, I know that, yeah, I've said it already. A lot of the same issues, in my opinion, were shared at that time, and I believe that's why the policy option was not brought forward for final review.
Ryan, go ahead.
I wouldn't like to propose that we mess around with any of their operating time at all. I think it's up to them. They are in a service industry, and they're there to, you know, serve people, and then to be told how they're going to operate, I think, is overstepping our boundaries.
And to speak on what Abby had asked, I do recollect that, yes, that issue did come up during that whole camp consultation, the alcohol strategy consultation, and at that point, the cab companies did come in and speak on their behalf, stating that further regulations would just be a death to their business. So, again, you start messing with these rules and regulations and bylaws and mandating businesses and how they're to operate. No, I'm not going to support any changes to that unless these people have their opportunity to truly speak on these matters.
Thanks for that, guys. Because I think that's the hardest thing for some of the new people at the table here. We haven't heard that, so I think that's good to know. And then, what's your thoughts?
My thoughts are, I think the existing bylaw pretty much covers what needs to be covered under regulations. And in terms of the operating hours, I mean, we can encourage them to, you know, try to stay open till 3, have somebody service come in until 3, but we can't enforce it, and I don't want to put anything rigid in there that, you know, that they're not going to conform to the bylaw just because they can't, aren't going to do that, so.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I mean, I get where this is coming from as far as providing a service after the bars are closed, but you're, again, like I'm sort of on the same wavelength as that it could potentially drive companies to not even renew their licenses. So I think at this point it's kind of dead on the table, unfortunately, and we're going to leave the bylaw as it is, consensus-wise.
So the second part,
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to look for the original matter. Yeah, I wasn't aware of that background information. My person think it was a brand new matter being brought forward, so thanks for sharing that background information.
Dean?
the second part of that, is there an appetite from council for your administration to do some research on ride-sharing programs and what your options are on that?
If we're taking a straw poll here, I've made my views known. I would like to see some options brought forward for our considerations on the ride sharing.
Yeah, and I'd like to see what that looks like too, just so that we're ahead of the game, because it's eventually going to be something that comes up on the table, because ride sharing is a huge thing right now. But you know, again, regulating it on Facebook, I don't know how we're really going to do that, to be very honest. Robbie, you want to say something?
I was just gonna ask, like, what do you mean ride share? Is that like the official ride sharing companies that come in, you sign up with a company, you're part of, yes, they belong to Uber? Are you talking about friends of friends on Facebook, say, hey, I need a ride?
I mean, we can't go in and start, and I mean, like the Facebook market, I don't know how you would even begin to do the regulations of that. I don't understand that side of it, on the enforcements of that. Like I said, for me,
Yeah.
I want to know that if somebody is going in, they download the Uber, Lyft, or ride-sharing platforms, apps, and are able to get a ride within our community, that they know that it carries the same licensing requirements as a standard taxi in the town of Orange.
We'll check that out in its entirety, and rather than debating, we're not, at this point, we'll see what that is and what it means and what other municipalities are doing. So we got a little bit of homework to do. We can sort that out. If I'm hearing 2 members of council so far interested, is that the consensus of the majority moving forward here?
Yeah, if we could get some sort of public, accessible transportation that is somewhat regulated in the sense that it would be like there'd be one central hub, I think that would be amazing.
Okay, so that's one more question.
Sorry, we got 2 more hands up here. Abby, go ahead.
I was just going to contribute thanks to the municipalities of Saskatchewan convention today. Check out the RM of Edenwald. They were recognized for their great work with their regional communities about their ride-sharing innovations once it came into Regina. So
Yeah, we can do that for sure.
And Brian?
I'm in favor of looking into ride sharing. I think it's an excellent opportunity. Those people regulate their own hours pretty much, and so you could potentially have people for giving rides after the bar, and it also encourages other businesses within the community that do provide the service as well to maybe step up to the same standards if they want to keep their businesses going forward.
That is a good point. Go ahead, Angela.
I was just gonna say, as soon as you try to regulate something, then you take on that responsibility. Then you've got to have some control over, are these vehicles certified? Because they're basically taking public people, they're like, you're taking passengers, so then you've got to be, in fact, you probably have a certain class of license in order to legally transport passengers. So there's a lot of things that I just don't see us getting into. I encourage it to be, but I just can't see how you could incorporate that into a taxi bylaw.
It'd be something different.
Well, it may be separate council, and we're debating something we haven't done the homework on, so with all due respect, let us.
If there's a way to
bring it back.
enhance that service, I'm okay with it, but I just trying to be careful that we don't get ourselves into something that's gonna be.
It also opens up another door and avenue for something aside from taxis that we can look into the future. And it gives more opportunity, but it also brings all those other taxi companies potentially to the standard if they're getting lots of business and they see it. So then I think it's a good thing that.
It's healthy competition.
Just one
100%.
last comment.
Yep.
Like Edenwald, I don't know, maybe they don't have, you know, a taxi service, so getting a program like that might be, you know, we don't know what they have in place in that community, so maybe that's something that when you're looking at Edenwald, you can check on to see what they have for existing taxi service.
So just as a point of order, where are we on moving forward with our straw poll here? I think
I've got the majority wanting to check out the rideshare program at this point, so we'll proceed on that basis.
Can I ask a question though? Do you know of any companies that currently offer the rideshare in the northern region that I can maybe look into?
I don't. If I'm not mistaken, I believe the city of Saskatoon has adopted a bylaw that is specifically designed to the ride sharing services in their communities, and that's more so what I'm looking for.
It might just be a business license. I don't know what licensing they have for those vehicles.
Yeah, it can be quite extensive and it can be a very contentious issue too, so should be interesting. So thank you. Is there any other questions or can we move on? All right. Okay, thank you, Robbie, appreciate it. Okay, we move on to the left around community mobilization issue report.
She's in secret up.
Oh, thanks. 18, go ahead.
Yeah, this was if you recall, we had a written request from Ellie Scott on behalf of Lac La Ronge Community Mobilization, seeking some financial assistance, and there was a request made for $10,000, and this kind of
point of order. I am going to be sitting on the hub meetings as part of the committee in the new DD position I'm in. Should I maybe leave?
Yeah, probably.
So Ryan, that's the same situation. We're not part of the steering committee, we're just at the table, so I don't know, I'm in the same situation.
Well, it's your decision if you feel you're in conflict or not.
Yeah, I think.
I'm not concerned about it.
Yeah.
As well. Okay,
Just call me back. Thank you.
I'll be back as well, thanks.
Okay.
Okay, Dean.
Okay, sorry. In any event, it's a matter that is a larger dollar amount, and they've asked it for at least a 1-year period, and as well, they're considering longer-term funding, possibly even to a 5-year period. And based on the request at this point, you know, this is a situation where I think that it'd be more appropriate for council to look at all requests of this nature at once and make determinations on those cases on their merit and through your budget deliberations. So we're recommending that this request be forwarded to your 2021 budget process for review and consideration at that time.
I will make the recommendation that we refer item 3.1.5 to budgetary discussions in the town of La Ronge for the 2021 to 2022 year.
Abby, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask a clarification about timing. Now, is this funding request, is it temporal? Is there a specific time frame that they're like needing money for? Or is this just longer term planning for the next budget year for them?
I don't know that exactly. And looking what they provided to us, it doesn't indicate that it's time sensitive.
Okay, and our budget process is scheduled for around?
Well, your budget process will really, we because of our role terminating with the town, we haven't commenced the process. We have the year 2021 budget in place and ready to go that will be reviewed with your new CAO, and Budget meetings will be scheduled at that time when he's a little bit more up to speed with everything. So I think it'll likely happen fairly quickly in March and go from there. We've done the initial review and the analysis of it, and the numbers are there, and we'll brief your new CEO on that matter, and then he can discuss that further with council when you want to meet to get into it.
So there is an asterisk on this letter actually that says, for accounting purposes, please post date checks to April 1st. So maybe that's their fiscal year. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I mean, it's an ask, and they're also asking for an extended period, and regardless of their timelines, I think, from our point of view, considering the tax dollars involved, I think you need to consider it in relation to everything else you're doing, not on somebody else's agenda as well.
yeah, I agree.
Great, thank you. I support the recommendation.
Yeah, I do as well. You and Joe? You guys good with that? Okay. Great. So we can move on if there's any other questions. Okay, excellent.
Call these things back,
Yeah, thank you.
hopefully.
Call Ryan and then he'll call.
Go on, Ryan, just tell them if you're in anything,
They can't see it.
so. Should be able to see the chat, should they not?
I don't know. Try.
Thank you.
Waiting on Viviana there.
Are you able to add Viviana back to the call, Ryan?
Yeah, I could probably add her in again.
Sorry, I thought we had a stranger in our meeting again. That was the biggest your face has been the whole night.
You can stop that.
There we go.
Viviana, you there?
I am here.
Excellent. Okay, so let's move on to 3.1.6, which is the community safety and well-being facilitator issued report. Go ahead, Dean.
This was a matter that you did get a presentation from Ms. Andrea Cowan in December, and we inadvertently missed the action to move forward, which requires a resolution of council. And based on the presentation, and now we're recommending that we do provide a letter of support as requested on behalf of community safety and well-being regarding their proposal for funding to the province of Saskatchewan to retain an outside facilitator to oversee the development of a community safety and well-being strat plan for the tri-community area.
And if I'm correct, there's no financial implications, correct? It's just we needed a letter.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct, yeah.
Perfect. Does anybody have any questions about this? Otherwise, I mean, I'd recommend. Can I make recommendations? I just want to confirm.
Yeah. We do that.
I just wanted to make sure. So, I mean, for me, this is a no-brainer for us. So I'd recommend that we go ahead and support
I'm just
it.
here for 2 seconds and do it.
Recommend, like if there's no motion or anything
Right, okay.
on the file,
Perfect.
so it's just recommendations.
Okay, good.
Informal.
Yeah.
Is anybody opposed to that?
I'm not.
I'm not.
No.
Okay, excellent. Okay, we head to the roundtable discussions. The first one, we'll go through the first two, and then if there's anything else that we want to discuss, then that can happen. The first one on the actual agenda here is the council procedures bylaw amendment. And Abby, did you want to speak a little bit on that?
Yes, I actually missed my opportunity to speak to Julie at Orange about this. But our agendas, Dean interprets our bylaw that our agendas cannot be released prior to the meeting, whereas as a general service to the community, providing a draft agenda, I think is desired. So I wanted to have a discussion about
whether we amend our bylaw to accommodate that. And I know Dean had a recommendation about how we could do that. And, or if we want to go about something further to provide even more information more ahead of time.
Just to be clear, it's not an interpretation. Your bylaw is clear that the agenda will not be released until, as council passed it, until after the meeting. So what is being suggested that in order for the public to have an idea of what you're speaking about, that an amendment could be made to release it the day before, as an example, is an option. Part of the reasoning, I guess, in terms of agendas can change, and I think that if you do provide it and post it the day before, it does provide the public an opportunity to see what matters are before you, not necessarily the reports, but the agenda per se, because some of those matters are confidential and wouldn't be privy to open the public agenda, but it certainly would be appropriate to release that the day prior to the council meeting, and the public does have enough time to have a look, and if they want to attend or be a part of that, then as well. I mean, the other option is because we make delegations in your bylaw, the way it reads, delegations have to register prior to noon, and part of the Friday preceding the council meeting, and the intent of that is that if there's any information that we need to get together in preparing the agenda to council, it gives you administration time to do that. So from an administrative perspective, we probably prefer something the day before, and that way it's subject, it's still out there, anybody can see what it is, and we post it on the website and in the town office, and it would be a pretty simple amendment to your bylaw if the council has the appetite to do that.
Go ahead, Chair. So I guess two things, if the council procedures bylaw will be coming back for any kind of amendment or review. Just a couple questions that I would have is there space for emergency resolutions of council or agenda items to be added? Basically, from my understanding in our council procedures bylaw right now, Tuesday at noon is considered the cutoff, or sorry, the day before at noon, right? For
Friday at noon.
Friday before.
But from my understanding, the council procedures bylaw before, if any member of council wanted to add a delegation or a speaker to a matter, they had until the day before at noon to notify administration that somebody could be added to the agenda. From my understanding, that's what it has been, and if that is the case, then I would put the recommendation forward that we would have that as the cutoff time, that once that cutoff has been reached, that's when the public could view it, because there shouldn't be any changes past that point, except for emergency resolutions.
Yeah, well, from an administrative point of view, the delegation part and council being able to do that is not part of your new bylaw, and I think that convolutes having the agenda open. As your existing bylaw reads, is that any member of council with the support of majority of council can add anything to the agenda. So you already have that mechanism in place. It's different. Like, the intent is not for a council shouldn't be surprised by a matter coming before it, either from a member of council or the public. So that the business that you have in front of you, your administration has got time to adequately research the matter and provide you the information you need in order to be informed on the subject matter. We got right away, your new bylaw gets right away from that springing it on at the last minute thing, and that's what was going on before, and to me it wasn't appropriate, and the former council agreed with that, and that's why the change was made. So this was simply to post the agenda, to amend your existing bylaw to have the agenda posted the day before your actual meeting. That's it. Nothing else was on. Is that correct, Abby?
The intent of my question about having the agenda publicly available is not necessarily having a predictable slate of general items that will be discussed at the council meeting, so that people on the weekend can read the agenda and say, hey, I need to make time on Tuesday night for this meeting because I want to see it live. It's less about interfering with the formal processes and more about information sharing and ways that we can do that that are not tripped up by our own bylaws.
So is that something like, I mean, I'm fully in support of that. Because again, it goes for more transparency, it goes for all that stuff for more people to get involved. But is it easy to rewrite that or write it into the bylaws?
Yeah, it's changing 2 words in 1 sentence, Member Duchesne. This is not a big deal to do.
Okay, can I get some consensus from the table, like what you guys feel about this?
Well, my feeling is if you want to get involved in what's going on with town council, you'll prepare yourself for that Tuesday, but yeah, if somebody wants to make it public notice, go ahead, I guess.
No, but the thing is, right now, it's not published until after, right? Until like the actual meeting, is that right?
From my understanding, somebody would have to come to the meeting, look at the agenda and say, no, I'm not interested, and leave. And this gives them the opportunity to look at it the day before, say, you know what, it still doesn't interest me, or yes, this does interest me and I need to make the time to be able to listen in on the discussion.
Yeah.
That's correct, yeah.
In the spirit of that, I absolutely have no problem. The question that I would have in regards to that is also surrounding the issue reports or documentation that council has that is provided to us. Whatever it is public information, is there any, do you see any issue that would arise from being able to share that prior to the meeting?
Well, it's not public information till you call your meeting to order and review it. So like if things change prior to the meeting or there was that's the protection that my understanding is there. So that's the long and short of it, is that anything that we file in the public domain is absolutely, the public is entitled to have a look at it. But prior to that, it's not public. It's still an internal document until it's formally brought forward into a duly called council meeting, is my understanding.
Okay, Abby, go ahead.
Yeah, the information provided in advance of the meeting is item titles to be discussed, maybe a 1-sentence summary, like that kind of information, not necessarily the reports that we do file when we adopt the agenda, but just that information that somebody sees enhanced police discussion happening on the agenda, they say, oh, I need to be there because they want to be here, and then they can get the information when they come.
Correct. That's exactly what you see on your agenda that you get is exactly what we post.
Well, the thing is, if we,
I think that,
when we get our agenda, we get it on AllNet, we can open it up. If you don't have AllNet, you can't open it up, and they can see the same agenda, but they're not going to see the detail that's going to be discussed or brought forward to council until it becomes public.
Right.
So, as far as I'm concerned, that agenda can go the same time as our agendas are given to us, as long as it can't go open.
Right.
Pragmatically, council, again, this is a matter of just posting a Word document or a PDF document on it. This has got nothing to do with AllNet. AllNet is the internal tool that you use, so it's got, we're not allowing public access into AllNet.
No, I'm not saying that. Yeah. I'm saying that when we open up our package, we need AllNet to be able to get into the package.
Right.
But what you see before you open it up,
It's just
can go to the public and they can see what's on our agenda, is what I'm saying.
For sure. Viviana?
I would be in favor of anything that increases transparency and
Could be Monday,
engagement.
Okay. So Ryan, where do you sit on?
I am for transparency. If people would like to view what we're talking about, and it might encourage people to become more involved within the community as well then. And so, yeah, I definitely see it as a healthy practice to have.
Okay, I think that there's a consensus there, and a majority there too.
Yeah, we can prepare that amendment for council's consideration for moving forward, no problem.
Okay, awesome. Let's move on to the next subject on the roundtable, which is the RCMP cost redistribution subcommittee board appointments. Abby, you want to talk about that?
Sure, so I managed to step in.
I'm gonna point of order.
Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
The point of order is that, this is the police board that she was appointed, that she self-appointed on, that should have, there's no motion to council for her to be on this initiative. We never had that. And
This is
so
what I'm coming to you
I expressed to you that I was interested to sit on that. And I look at the minutes and she's already on there, like, how did this happen?
So Abby, do you want to speak a little bit about that, just for clarity, because I think that there's maybe
Yeah,
some
a little
misconception.
transparency would be nice.
Go ahead, Abby.
Yeah, no, this is why I'm bringing this to you tonight. So, like I said, I kind of like stepped into it. I'm not formally appointed to any committee. That requires a resolution of council, so I wanted to provide you the information. So what happened was I sat in on the task force for community safety meeting that was presented. Everybody got the information about that last week. When did it happen?
Yeah, last week, and everyone was emailed that information to me, so, yeah. Yep.
Yes, so after that meeting, I had some discussions with other council members and kind of was getting some more information and was unclear about a couple of things to do with how our RCMP costs are calculated and stuff like that. So what I did was took the initiative to email Ray Gallivan, who's with the government, and asked her a set of questions. So to give you an example of what I asked, I was asking, we are a municipality as L'Orange prescribed by the minister to receive services per an agreement that they impose, and does that require the town to be the location of the detachment? Who actually has a say in that decision? Looking at the definition of a regional participant, what does that actually mean, because the definition is really vague. And then, you know, exemption for northern municipalities not paying for policing services and things that I've heard outside of the legislation that I could not find an answer for in the legislation. So I asked these questions, and Ray's response, I'll read you verbatim. Good morning, I'm working on a response to your questions. In the meantime, at the task force meeting, we established two subcommittees, the Terms of Reference Subcommittee and Police Cost Redistribution Subcommittee. I had Creighton Mayor Bruce Fiddler volunteer for the Terms of Reference Subcommittee, but I had no Northern Municipal representative for the Police Cost Redistribution Subcommittee. The SARM rep is confirmed as President Ray Orr. Municipalities of Sask rep is Randy Goulden out of Yorkton, and I think you would make a great addition to the subcommittee given your interest in the area. I'm in the process this week of setting up a Teams virtual meeting for both subcommittees to be held the week of February 22nd. If you agree to sit on the committee, could you provide your availability this week? And I'm still waiting for a response to the questions. I responded to Ray that I would need a resolution of council to be appointed to the committee and see if there was other interest among the council members. So that's where it's at. That's the information that I have, and I want to give it to you guys for a discussion because I think it's an important thing that we do have representation on the subcommittee, and we can go a long way. And if this is something that somebody really has a passion for, by all means, it doesn't have to be me.
Abby, do you know if it's just a one person or if there's multiple people who can sit on that by chance?
I don't know the specifics. Again, terms of reference aren't even made for the subcommittees. So I think if we ask, if 2 representatives from the town say wanted to, I don't think it would hurt to ask if we could have 2.
And that's maybe where we can get administration to reach out, and then we can put a formal resolution maybe together for our next meeting. Because yeah, it's a strange thing that, you know, they say that there's these committees, but they've never really come to us to even ask for representation, other than like the fact that you took the initiative to reach out, right? And I sat in on that phone call as well, and it was, I don't know how you sort of felt about it, but it was a very vague meeting about a lot of different things that I felt were far above my head when it came to a lot of the conversations that happened. And this phone call was open to all council as well to be there. I think that I didn't know that Abby was even on the call, and when they were going through all the lists and the names in there, I was like, I don't even know if I'm supposed to be here. Like I sort of felt out of place. I don't know if that's how you felt, Abby, but I felt very like it just, that there was going to be nothing for me to partake in or be part of. So maybe it's just that's something that administration can reach out further and see if they want us to be there. Because I mean, and I'll ask you, Allison, when that was forwarded to us, what was there any context of that call or the email? I guess
Just the details that were in the email. When
Yeah.
she phoned, she wanted to set up a meeting, and that was and I said, forward me the information, I'll pass it on. And she said it was open to all council, so
Yeah.
that was the extent of the information we had.
okay. So
I believe what the email said was that there was the mayor of Creighton, so there was one individual, but we can ask, and if we can get the contact, then we can find out if there's 2. But I guess the question before council is, who outside of Abby is interested in sitting on this? That's the matter before council right now, rather than the committee and logistics.
Why don't I put it this way? There is a meeting coming up near, what was it, the week of the 22nd, so in 2 weeks. Would anybody be available during that time? Or in the meantime, I could sit on that committee as a temporary representative before we get our resolution. Let's see, we wouldn't have a resolution until 23rd. So,
because those are open meetings right now, right? Like those, or is it separate?
these sound like formal subcommittees,
Oh,
so.
okay. Because Councillor Hiskey has also expressed interest as well, so I don't know if you guys, like, I mean, the more information we get, and you're passionate about it, Abby, too, and I know you are as well, Joe, like, do you?
Well, I sat on the committee back in 2008 and 9 when it was first established, and part of the reason why that whole committee was established was the extremely high policing costs that Rwanda was having back in the early 90s. And we checked with a lot of other municipalities to see what they were paying. There was five communities that were well over $100 per capita, where other communities were paying a third of that. And so we brought it to SUMA. We brought it to the F Division as well. And after a couple of years of deliberation, SUMA actually set up this task force on policing to look at the distribution of the policing costs. And that's kind of they've evolved and expanded into other areas and working more with justice now. But that was their intent when they first formed, was to try and level the playing field. There was detachments, or communities with detachments, and there was maybe a community 10 kilometers away that didn't have a detachment, and they were paying kind of like we are here. We pay way here, and our neighbor pays nothing, you know. And so it had to be leveled. So that's how it started, and I kind of got locked into that, and then in 2009 when I did run, I stepped off that board, and then since then I haven't been involved in it.
So moving ahead, so can we, without a resolution, can we have someone temporarily sit on the board until we make that decision? Or what's sort of the logistics of this?
Well, I think they're asking for someone, because of the interest, I think that's how this this got brought to the table. It wasn't that Laurent, my understanding, Laurent got a special invite. Abby expressed interest, and that's why it's before you right now, because a resolution is required. Like, the issue before you is that you have somebody else who may be interested.
Right.
So I think we already know this, so it's a matter of now what.
Can I make a proposition? If I start correspondence with Ray, I'll get back to her and ask her those questions about, you know, if Laurent can have 2 representatives, or if she would like just 1, or how Laurent can be involved with this, because there's potentially more than one subcommittee to be sitting on with what they seem to want to do. And draft a resolution to be on our next meeting agenda. Otherwise, and a temporary recommendation that a representative from the town of Orange sit on the Teams meeting on the week of February 22nd.
My suggestion, if I may, is that if you want to if you want to secure the information and provide it to Allison, and then she can distribute to council. And if we're only allowed 1, I guess the question again will be, it'll be before you on the 23rd. We can have a resolution prepared to appoint somebody to that committee if we're only allowed 1. So if council's in agreement that Abby can, because she's made the initial contact, and we've really been out of this loop altogether from an administrative point of view. If Abby wants to make ask the questions whether we can have 2 yes or no, and provide that to Allison, then we can prepare the issue report and appropriate resolution for your 23rd meeting. Does that make sense?
I agree.
Yeah, I'd be in support of that too, because I mean, you're the person who took the initiative to do that, so I think if you want to continue going through, how does the rest of the table feel? Okay. Viviana?
Yeah, I would support that.
Okay. Okay, so I think we'll leave that at that. Is there anything else that we want to bring to the table for this roundtable discussion? Go ahead, you.
Some of these emails, what is it that we're committed to be reading our emails, our private time, 24/7 in regards to town issues? When I read into an email that some of the elected people are phoning government officials on their private time on a Saturday to talk about media issues, you know, what about a little bit of respect? I mean, we all have our private time. When I feel I have to read an email, I have to engage in that email because an individual is going to act. Come on, guys. Why do we have meetings? Why do we sit around this table? Do we not sit around this table to discuss some of these media issues? And I just, and again, sorry, but when I'm sitting here having a conversation with our bylaw enforcement officer, and it comes across my screen that that's a bit of a snide remark.
So I'm gonna call for point of order, because I think we can discuss that in camera.
What is it, the labor issue? Is it
no, but when we're talking about personnel and the way that we're talking to each other, I think that we can save it for camera. I will talk about the email stuff, because that is absolutely something that we just should discuss now.
There's no other items on the agenda. I'll move to do it camera.
I'm not there yet.
I thought we went on the.
No, this is a round table still. The emails and calling of people on the weekends, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, and then I need some maybe clarification on that, but to me, like personal time and all that stuff, like we work 24/7, 365, like that's my understanding of our job. So if I have to call someone on a weekend to get clarification as to what's going on, I don't feel like that's outside of my realm to do that. It's, if I call someone, and I think I understand what you're talking about as far as calling Parks and Recreation to get some clarification of what an email has come through, and probably then they called you to get some, because they're frustrated. They don't have, And I respected when that person said that they did not want to talk, and I waited till Monday. And that's up to them to tell me that they're not willing to talk about that. I work 24/7, 365. We're in a position of council where we can run into residents any time of the day or night, emails, phones, it just sort of how it works. I don't think we work in 9 to 5. And if anyone else feels differently, I would love to hear that, because I will sort of hold back if that's sort of the consensus here. But Abby, go ahead.
Sorry, this is for another issue for Roundtable.
Okay, go ahead, Ryan.
I have issue for Roundtable. I get phone calls during the night and that too, so, or even when I'm working, so I see it as a 24/7 job myself.
Well, I totally respect that too. It most definitely is a 24/7 position that you've been elected into, and I can truly appreciate that. It's just, some issues I strongly feel can wait until, I guess it's a discretionary thing, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It's a discretionary thing. I mean, 10, 11 o'clock, yeah, my phone rings. 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm trying to have a coffee, my phone rings. I'll pick it up and all that. You know, but some of it can wait. And again,
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, if I call you and it's you don't want to answer, and that's your decision, right? You don't have to answer. But if people do call and if they say I want to talk, I'm willing to listen, and vice versa. And same with emails, right? Like, no one's forcing anyone to read emails or respond to emails or whatever, right? So that's sort of my take on that. Go ahead, Joe.
I guess I'm a believer in having the discussion around this table. I'm not really in favor of emails shooting back and forth in regards to issues that are, some of them aren't even municipal issues. They're issues that should be taken up to the higher level of government, because it's not our jurisdiction.
For sure.
And that's, you know, if it's municipal related, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you're right. Ryan, go ahead.
I do appreciate what Councillor Hughes said about the discretionary use of this. You know, I do like to personally hear about emergencies, like why the heck are we fixing a fire hydrant when it's minus 35? Did we have to deal with it at that point? No, I like being informed on it, and I'm glad it was actually stopped. So I think, you know, getting emails just for information is fine with me, but I'm not always going to answer them on the weekend either if I'm involved in something else.
Abby, go ahead. Sorry, I'm going to go these two and then I'll come to you.
Are we going to discuss or move into the discussion about what this is actually the root of this?
If I may, Mayor, excuse me, that, you know, there's some, like and I think I chimed in on the email chain, is that you know, my opinion is that matters that should be discussed by council in an open council meeting, that's exactly where they should be. And the emails aren't a place to make a decision or to formulate a strategy. That's exactly what council meetings are for. And you talk about transparency and accountability, those are very key elements to that. So as my suggestion to you administratively is that, of course, inquiries, and that's a part of our lives in public service. You know, that happens, and we all get the calls, and we all get that. I think everybody realizes that. But to conduct, like crossing the line to me is starting to conduct business via email. That's not appropriate. And that's something that it certainly hasn't been a problem with this council, but I can see where that medium is becoming quite popular to engage discussion. As you know, if there is an issue from an administrative point of view as a CAO, I'd rather be the first to know than the second last or the 8th person to know, you know, even via an email. So if there's a concern, I think open to taking the calls or the texts or the emails and making me aware of it. And I think, as you know, I make a point of getting back to you in a timely manner. So if there's concerns regarding operations, I think that we've established the protocol to do that. And for council business, it's conducted at the council table. And I don't think it's a good practice to deviate from that. And I'll just leave it at that.
Go ahead. And then Vivian, I'm coming to you after Jordan. Go ahead.
So from my practice as a counselor, I don't believe that leading up into anything that might involve advocacy within our realm, whether it be lobbying provincial government, federal government, or whether we have discussions that are based solely on municipal jurisdiction. I think if we are doing an information gathering where we are trying to understand an issue deeper, I don't believe, in my view, that is something that is unethical of a counselor to do. And if it's whether going into corporate history, going into speaking to managers of other areas, as long as the context is understood that you're there to gather information, not to provide feedback on behalf of the municipality, I think that's important that you make that distinction when you're having any conversation and being aware of that. And that's, I think, what our code of conduct typically goes into, is making sure that when you are expressing your views or trying to information gather, that people know you're coming there as a concerned citizen and trying to understand where they're coming from, why these decisions were made, so that when we do have our deliberations at this council table, that you are doing that in a way that is completely 100% educated and not using any kind of predisposition coming into that debate. And I think that is fine for any member of council to do, is be as prepared for any issue that might be coming forward to a council table.
Okay, Viviana?
I just wanted to remind you of our code of ethics, and we are upheld with your standard and as being council members, and I don't think it's appropriate for us to have, I don't know, this area dirty laundry in this way, and I think that we really should talk about getting a cohesive team, we can all track each other and communicate openly with each other, and with that, I would like to move to go into camera to figure out how to do that.
Okay, Dean, do you have your hand up still? Sorry, you're muted.
I'm sorry, it should be, I'll lower it, I'm sorry.
Okay, I think that, okay, before we go in, because I agree with you, Vivian, I think that there is a time and place for maybe talking about this, but I do know that there are a couple other roundtable issues that need to come up, and I don't know if we discuss that and then go into camera, or if we go into camera, discuss it, and then we figure that out.
Let's deal with the roundtable matter
Okay.
as the agenda, please.
Okay, Ryan, go ahead.
I did put into service tracker today an issue that I have with the snow removal in the town here. Tonight I cannot back out of my driveway with my truck. I got a 2012 crew cab with a long box. When I back out of my driveway, I take up to the other side of the road. So at this point, I cannot get out. You cannot drive down the road here because when people park on the road, there's no way for a car to get in between another vehicle and the ridge. I actually had to drive over the ridge at lunch, which was quite a bit smaller than it is now. Now I'm trying not to make this about me, because I can see this as an issue for other residents in our community, and the frustration of waking up in the morning, or even me. I was sick in the afternoon, so I went down for a nap, and then I look out and I'm like, what the hell, you know? So I don't know if this is the appropriate time to talk about it, and I just wanted everyone to know I did put in a service track report for it, so it can be dealt with properly. And I sent Colin the picture.
Yeah, and I've seen the picture. I think, I mean, we still have six to 8 weeks of winter left, and I know that we do have that coming to council soon, but I mean, Dean, what are our options here? Because there are some serious issues. Even now, I mean, I've seen multiple vehicles also end up in the ditch, and I texted you over the weekend to figure out what we can do over this, but like we have very slick roads, and I don't know if there's any way of fixing our policy before that, but I don't know. Ryan, did you want to add something really quick before Dean responds?
Yeah, it's just like, the frustration is like, and I'm fine with it, I'm cool, but I have to take a cab to work tomorrow, right? And so we're putting people in a situation where, you know, they can't get their vehicles out of the driveway in the morning.
All I can say, I don't have enough information. I got the picture as well that was sent to me, and I will, we have a management committee meeting first thing tomorrow. I will also discuss this with the appropriate manager here if I can, and take it from there. That's all I can offer council at this point.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have anything about snow removal stuff that can be passed along, or can we move on to the next issue? Okay, Abby, go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to monopolize anybody's time, but there's just a couple of things that came up in the last little while that I wanted to put before council. So I want to talk about. First one, MLDP attendance. Has that been approved by council? According to our bylaws, I believe that needs a formal, or is that an assumed?
It doesn't need a resolution. We're taking those right now, and Allison sent out a request to all the council, and it's a matter of, I don't know where that's at, but you don't need anything other than that.
Okay.
It's just a 3, right?
Allison, if you can, we'll send something out, I guess, tomorrow, and we can talk about it in management.
I wanted to talk about the issue of reporting from committees and boards, because it does state in our bylaws that we are to report back to council. So I wanted to discuss the format of that, how we as a council want that to appear, whether it be at roundtables or written reports.
Just as a, I guess, point of information. From my understanding, in our council procedures bylaw, that is a standing item is committee reports, and that if there is minutes or an official report submitted by a councillor, that it would be added to the agenda.
So does the councillor then have to let administration know that they've attended, and then
provide a submission of the report? Yes.
Okay.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay, so that's to our regular council meetings.
Correct. So from my understanding, in our council procedures bylaw, I know that we did recently amend that, but I believe that's a standing agenda item for a regular meeting of council.
That's correct. Yeah.
But it is on each councillor and to
submit a report.
Submit that to.
Because some are quarterly, some are monthly, rather than saying nothing to report, nothing to report, nothing to report. It sounds like nothing's happening either.
Yeah.
Right? So.
Good. Okay. Brian, did you have your hand up again there? Or no?
No, it's all right.
Okay. Abby, was there anything else?
Yeah. Okay. The correspondence that we were having over the last week, I sent out an email to everybody in regards to the trails at Nut Point, the conversion issue that some of the residents in the local ski club had with that. I put it to council, if anyone was in support of this, and then, a municipality, if we have a stance on that. I got some feedback that not everybody's in consensus that they oppose this. So that's great, fine. I'm wondering, in regards to that, as individual council members, is there anything barring us from taking on an advocacy role, not as a representative of the town, but as a resident? Is that stepping past appropriateness?
Can I just add a little more information to this topic? Just because, I mean, I'm not sure if everyone did see the letter of support that we're sort of being asked to provide, which I have not done anything to it. The only thing that I've done so far is I reached out to Parks and Recreation to get a little more information, just so that I had a broader understanding of what was going on. After that conversation, what I gathered from it is that Parks and Recreation made a decision to open up the provincial park, which is open to all users, for essentially a matter of 6 weeks. So starting February 15th until March 31st. These two loops, so loop 1 and 2, are lit, and it was decided that because of COVID times, considering that outside is sort of the new way to get any sort of physical activity, movement, that they needed to figure out another way for more users to be involved and have accessibility, rather than just being strictly to cross-country skiing. Further to that, it was also noted that these trails are also managed and maintained by the park and not by the ski club specifically. So that was also another eye-opener for me. This for me, this is a 40-year history. There's a lot of things that go into that. So I just wanted to provide that information as well. And I think that we should go around the table here a little bit too, just so that we can understand whether we're going ahead with support or not support with this. Is that, I mean, we are talking about 6 weeks, and I do absolutely appreciate the history of the ski club. However, because I also, work in recreation, we are trying to be extremely creative in our ways of creating opportunities for people to do stuff during COVID. So for us to hinder and really try to pull back and try to disengage more users from getting active and fit and all that stuff, to me it doesn't make sense, and it goes against everything that I sort of stand for, when you're trying to divide and do it in that sense. So for me, I appreciate what they're trying to do here, because I appreciate the long-standing history of the trails around the tri-communities, but unfortunately at this time I'm not in favor of supporting a letter. And I'd like to go around the table and kind of see where we're at, because I don't know where everyone else sort of fits.
Joe? Start with me here. I totally agree with you. I think it's an initiative that they're trying to, accommodate all users, and it's for 6 weeks. I'm not in favor of interfering with that.
Okay, Viviana?
I would concur. I think that we need to share that recreational space. I think that skiing is an important activity, and I do know that some of the attitudes are, well, you can take skiing, we'll find you some skis tomorrow, but what if I don't need to, right? So I definitely think we have walking space.
Ryan?
I think walking space is needed as well. I have nothing against skiing, but I find some of them very combative, in my experience. And so if we can have our own trail system, that would be perfect. Thank you.
And Abby, did you want to add anything? I think I know where you sit. You're sort of in favor of this, but did you something you wanted to confirm? Or?
Sure. It just the place that I come from is taking away from one user to accommodate another when all users could be accommodated the way you want is not the right way to go about it, especially without any consultation, considering the established history of the ski club. I know that Bora was trying to work with parks to get a lit trail along the lake for snowshoers and walkers and such. I appreciate everybody's opinion, and this is why I put it in front of everybody, is I wanted this issue to be discussed because we share recreational space with Nut Point. Nut Point's as important to the town as the town is to Nut Point. So it's a relationship that we have that we need to consider implications or how we can contribute positively to something like this happening.
Yeah, and I'll just add a little bit to that as well. It's 2 out of the 5 kilometers that would be taken away, and I know that there was some, there was concern that it was going to carry over to the other loops, and just from again my conversation with Parks and Recreation is that consultation was done, and I don't know. I can only take the word of that side, and I can only take the word of the other side. So who knows? There's always 3 sides to everything. So that's just what I want to add to it. Hugh, what is your sort of thoughts on it?
Well, you start picking and choosing between these different user groups, and you're going to obviously create a fair bit of conflict, and I don't feel that that's our position to pick sides. I mean, you can do it on a personal level, I would suspect, but for the town to draft a letter saying, hey, let's support this ski club on this initiative. Hey, let's support the snowmobile club on this initiative. No, that's not my mandate anyway, so it's my position.
Great, thank you, Jordan.
I would say that what the park does have implications on tourism and people willing to come to the area, and I think that the skiers you know, in this regard, aren't wrong by having, you know, some of the services that they've become accustomed to change. And I know that with any kind of change, obviously there's some issues with people that might be affected negatively and positively. This positively affects groups that, you know, would like to walk their dogs or fat bike, as I think some of the initiatives we're trying to push for. And I don't disagree with any of the comments around the table. I believe that in our region, the more services and the more types of trails, the more types of recreation people can get involved in is extremely important. And I think that if we were going to try and find a way to provide advocacy into building our region to be more expansive, as I think the parks plan is to try and offer as many services as possible, we can look at other areas within the Lac La Ronge Regional Park or other loops of lighting those for fat biking and for walking and dog walking, looking into, I know, like Don Allen, if we can find some ways to provide that level of safety with having a lit path for people to be able to ski on, and in doing that, it's kind of a compromise of we're planning on converting that point to a partial walking trail. But in lieu of that, we're going to increase services in other areas. I think that is an awesome initiative for the parks to do, but once again, this is something that is outside of our jurisdiction to enforce. And I would personally say that on this specific matter, I don't think it's appropriate for the town of La Ronge to be offering a letter of support or a letter opposing any changes in the provincial park.
Okay, thank you. One short comment.
Sure.
You know, this whole period here may be a, you know, an opportunity to see how many snowshoers are going out, how many hikers are going out. Maybe it'll create a need to do these other trails or more, you know, make it happen quicker if the need is there, you know. So
Sure.
I think it's just be good and hopefully we'll find this stuff out.
I think it's an opportunity for sure, and it might be something that we can potentially look into, right? I think one of the biggest issues was around the lighting and making safe space, so
yeah,
that's something that maybe we can bring into that as well. Okay, I think that we've sort of exhausted that.
I just wanted to make a comment here, just if you recall the discussion you had with your Code of Ethics bylaws, that you do have the right as an individual to speak what you feel in terms of a matter in relation to the community. Because you're on council doesn't mean you're grounded. However, there has to be clear separation that it's your own personal opinion and not that of the elected council. So you're certainly entitled to speak to community or groups or entities. You just happen to sit on council, but as your bylaw reads, you need to have clear separation between your own personal views and that of the official position of the town of La Ronge, just to be clear.
And I think, Abby, I think that's what you wanted your answer to, right? So I think on a personal level, you can write a letter. It just can't be on the behalf of the town, and that's okay. We all have separate, you know, positions and everything. So does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, thank you.
Okay, awesome. Any other things for the roundtable?
Did you want to touch on the scattered sites?
Oh, sure. Let's. Can we?
Yes, we were granted the motion to.
Oh, of course, yes. So let's go ahead.
Yep.
You go.
Okay, so over the last couple of weeks, I'm sure that there's been some concerns that have been raised regarding the homelessness in our community. I know that a couple of weeks ago we had some individuals that were sleeping outside, and it was minus 40. And I thank Mayor Vishniak for reaching out to other tri-community leaders to try and find a way within each jurisdiction to be able to make sure that these people were well taken care of and had a dignified, warm place to sleep for the evening. And through those through that process, the Scattered Sites Outreach Program did ask to have a meeting with the tri-community leaders, and due to COVID, they asked that it would be just the mayor and deputy official attend the meeting. At the meeting, they basically gave us an update as to what their services do, and in our, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but what they did is they told us there was these two programs that run. One is a 9 to 5 operation, which was the Scattered Sites program, which is like the daily meal programs, as well as day programming throughout their organization, as well as the temporary shelter service. that they're currently looking at trying to find a permanent solution in the area, that their funding is conditional year to year, and ultimately gave us an update as to what their current operation is, and also provided us a motion by the board that they would like the town of Orange to be a partner in advocating for a long-term homeless strategy and solution in our area, that we can consult with them and try and provide that service, or find a long-term solution to homelessness in our area. So they did provide us the authority to be able to start advocating in some of those measures. So if there's anything that you'd like to add?
No, I think that was the biggest ticket, is that there's been some issues around COVID specifically, and then just the whole issue with it being -40 and not having a solution. So, you know, there's been some great work done by some community people that really just stepped up, and that there is a plan. You know, that was the biggest thing, is we wanted to make sure there was a plan, and we've been assured that there is, and that we should be getting an update here hopefully within a week, 2 weeks of what that sort of looks like. And if it doesn't, then there could be potentially other measures going in place, or there would need to be, as there's some contingency on funding. So yeah, that's they do want our support. They do want us to engage, and that's sort of where we'll leave that conversation. Question?
I think it's been really great to see the work that Dan did to accommodate these people, and you know, they did emergency work and created a space, and I believe they got some getting from the Red Cross to help with that. It was nice that they took control of that.
Mm-hmm. For sure, yeah, no, I could definitely commend the band for stepping up. I will also just let you know that there was some initial conversations with Dean to look into see if the curling club could be used, but obviously that would require all of council, so that's why an emergency
space, I guess, you know.
Exactly, and that's why an emergency meeting did not have to happen, is because the band did step in. But I do want to say thank you to Dean for that. But yeah, there's definitely, I mean, these are real people issue, you know, things that we need to consider, just being in a supportive manner. So that's good. Anything else for now?
Not to that, no.
Okay, go ahead.
The other thing that I did want to bring up is part of the New North strategy is they're trying to reach out to municipalities and some stakeholder discussions for strategic planning. I believe there was an email sent out. I don't know if that was just to me and I was supposed to redistribute it. I haven't checked the email. But there's going to be basically a community survey that's given to each community throughout northern Saskatchewan, where they can provide their unique issues that they would like to see New North advocate. For anyone that doesn't know, that's new to council, what New North is it's one of those organizations very similar to municipalities of Saskatchewan that offers advocacy services to northern municipalities. And like I said, this is one of the initiatives that they're doing on the strategic plan, is to try and involve northern municipalities. What they're asking is one survey be submitted per community. So typically what that would entail is a meeting of the leaders of the community, put their priorities on a piece of paper and submit that into the strategic planning session. So if you guys are willing to do that, I can try and facilitate that discussion to be able to fill that out. And because I'm already going to be at that meeting, I have no problem with taking exactly what we've had and presenting it on behalf of the town to New North.
Any questions around that? Ryan?
Yeah. Back to the homeless situation. Is the Kickenack still in charge of or receiving the funding, I should say, for scattered sites?
At this moment in time, yeah, they are.
Yes.
Okay. And they're not running the operation?
They have specific limitations, partially because of the building that they're operating out of, because of code issues and health COVID restrictions, yes. So there's there's definitely a lot of limitations around that, and that's, I think, one of the biggest hurdles that they're dealing with right now, trying to move forward. So I think, in the near future here, I mean, they're only in the drifters until the 31st of March, I think that contract is. I'm not 100% sure on that date. But yeah, there are definitely needs, and I mean, I don't know how much I can talk about this without having them come in and speak for themselves, so I don't want to go too far into it. But yeah, I think there will be something coming forward to us potentially in the future about how we can work with them and support them.
Yeah, I really think that we need to deal with this issue. I'd look at even other municipalities that support the homeless within their community, right? And why haven't we, as a tri-community in this area, work together on resolving this homeless issue that we seem to be up against every year? We have people jogging around looking for dogs and cats while the weather's freezing cold, but yet we leave human beings outside, right? So I'd like everybody to just think about that.
I appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you for that.
So Dean, just a matter of process, one of the questions that I would have in regards to the providing the survey back, would that be something that we need to have a meeting of council in your opinion, or can this be something that is just given the will of council, we can meet via Skype meeting that we elect to do so and move forward?
Yeah, how you gather the information from your council is really up to you in this matter. It's not necessarily the official position, but I think your New Northridge is asking for input. So if you want to do it via email or Skype, that would be appropriate. I don't think we need a special meeting of council for that, no.
Okay. I will send an email out to everybody with a copy of the survey, and then we can maybe schedule a meeting later in the week or something to make any kind of official statement on behalf of the town to that organization.
Okay, excellent. Any other things for the roundtable?
Nope, not at that time.
Okay, excellent.
I have one comment, just to go on the record.
Yeah.
I want to apologize to Councillor Watt. I made a remark that did not have the decorum that this chamber demands, and I'm sorry about that.
Thank you, Abby.
Oh, accept that apology, whatever.
Thanks, you. Okay, is somebody want to move for